Have we ever paused to wonder if we are indeed alone in this vast universe? Or could our neighboring planet Mars hold the answers? Mars, the fourth planet from the Sun, has long been a subject of fascination. Its blood-red sky and rocky terrains have stirred intrigue and curiosity for centuries, beckoning us with a tantalizing possibility: the prospect of life beyond Earth. The concept of extraterrestrial life is not new. Scientists, astronomers, and space enthusiasts have been exploring this possibility for years. But why Mars? What makes this distant, seemingly barren planet a potential candidate for life? Several factors make Mars an interesting prospect. For one, it's our closest planetary neighbor, making it more accessible for exploration. But proximity isn't the only reason Mars piques our interest. Mars in many ways is similar to Earth. It has polar ice caps made of water. A day on Mars is just a tad longer than our own, and seasons change there, much like they do here. These similarities suggest that Mars, at some point in its history, could have been hospitable to life. Furthermore, scientists have found traces of methane in the Martian atmosphere, a gas often associated with living organisms on Earth. And let's not forget the discovery of liquid water on Mars, a vital ingredient for life as we know it. These discoveries have fueled the notion that Mars could potentially harbor life. But the Martian environment is harsh. Its thin atmosphere, freezing temperatures, and lack of magnetic field make it inhospitable for humans. Yet, these challenges have not deterred us. Instead, they've spurred us on, igniting the human spirit of exploration and discovery. If Mars could potentially harbor life, how could we make it more hospitable for us? The answer might be as audacious as it is controversial: nuking Mars. But that's a story for another scene. So, the question remains, if Mars could potentially harbor life, how could we make it more hospitable for us? Terraforming, a term that sounds like it's straight out of a science fiction novel. But what does it mean? The word terraforming is derived from the Latin words terra, meaning earth, and forma, meaning shape or form. It's a concept that's as fascinating as it sounds. A concept that's about shaping and transforming a planet to make it more like our own Earth. Imagine being able to look up at the sky from another planet and seeing clouds, feeling a breeze, or watching a sunset. Terraforming is about making these experiences possible on an alien world. But how do we do that? How do we make a planet like the Earth? Well, it's not as simple as planting a few trees or building a few houses. It's about fundamentally changing the atmosphere, temperature, surface, and even the ecology of a planet. For instance, let's think about Mars. It's a cold, dry, and barren landscape with a thin atmosphere primarily composed of carbon dioxide. To terraform Mars, we would need to thicken the atmosphere, increase the temperature to melt the polar ice caps, and introduce life forms that can survive and thrive in the Martian environment. Terraforming is like giving a planet a complete makeover, changing it from a harsh, uninhabitable environment into a warm, welcoming home for humans. It's about making a planet livable, about making it a place where we could grow food, breathe the air, and live our lives. But of course, this is a colossal task, one that would take thousands, perhaps millions of years to achieve. It would require immense resources, advanced technology, and perhaps most importantly, the will to make it happen. And how do we kickstart this process? Well, there are several theories. Some suggest introducing genetically engineered organisms to the planet. Others propose building giant mirrors in space to reflect sunlight onto the planet's surface. But one of the most radical and intriguing methods of terraforming is, believe it or not, nuking Mars. Nuking Mars sounds extreme, doesn't it? But there's a method to this madness. Let's dive right into this audacious concept, which might sound like it's straight out of a science fiction novel. The idea of nuking Mars was proposed by none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and space enthusiast. His thought process? Detonate nuclear bombs over the poles of Mars to melt its ice caps and release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now you might be asking, why on Earth? Or rather, why on Mars would anyone want to do that? Well, the answer lies in the fundamental principle of terraforming, a concept we've just explored. By increasing the planet's temperature and pressure, we could potentially make the Martian environment more Earth-like, more habitable for future human settlers. The nuclear bombs in this scenario wouldn't be used for destruction, but rather for creation. You see, Mars has vast reserves of frozen carbon dioxide, both at its poles and beneath its surface. If these reserves were to be released, they could thicken the Martian atmosphere, causing temperatures to rise. This is called a greenhouse effect, a phenomenon we're all too familiar with here on Earth. This effect, caused by the trapping of the sun's warmth in a planet's lower atmosphere, is what keeps our Earth a comfortable temperature. The same process, when artificially induced on Mars, could theoretically warm the planet up, making it more suitable for life as we know it. But simply warming the planet wouldn't be enough. The newly released carbon dioxide would also increase the atmospheric pressure of Mars, which currently is less than 1% of Earth's. This increase in pressure could allow liquid water to exist on the Martian surface, a key ingredient for life. In theory, this process could create a greenhouse effect, warming the planet. But what about in practice? As we move forward, we'll delve into the potential pros and cons of this controversial idea, and explore whether nuking Mars could truly be our ticket to a second home in the cosmos. Like any daring idea, nuking Mars comes with its own set of pros and cons. Let's dive right into it. Starting with the potential benefits, one of the most significant is creating a warmer climate. By nuking Mars, we would release vast amounts of carbon dioxide trapped in the soil and polar ice caps. This would lead to a greenhouse effect, heating the planet and potentially making it more hospitable for human life. Imagine a Mars where the average temperature isn't a chilly -80 degrees Fahrenheit, but something a bit more Earth-like. Along with a warmer climate, nuking Mars could also create a thicker atmosphere. An increase in atmospheric pressure would make Mars more akin to Earth, potentially allowing liquid water to exist on the surface. This could be a stepping stone for sustaining life and creating a self-sufficient colony on the red planet. But every rose has its thorns. The potential drawbacks of nuking Mars are significant and worth considering. The first, and perhaps most obvious, is the risk of nuclear fallout. While the intention is to release carbon dioxide, the reality could be a radioactive wasteland, uninhabitable for thousands of years. Moreover, there are profound ethical implications of radically altering another planet. We could potentially destroy any existing Martian life, no matter how microscopic. And we must question whether we have the right to reshape a planet on such a massive scale, especially when we're still grappling with the consequences of our actions here on Earth. There's also the risk of creating a runaway greenhouse effect akin to what we see on Venus. We could end up with a planet even less hospitable than the Mars we have today. So it's clear that while the idea of nuking Mars is intriguing, it's also fraught with potential challenges. As we continue to reach for the stars, we must always weigh the potential benefits against the risks to ensure we're not merely leaping before we look. But the main question remains, is nuking Mars to terraform it even feasible? As we delve into the world of space technology, it's clear that we've come a long way since the first man set foot on the moon. However, nuking Mars is a different ballgame altogether. It's not just about having the right technology, but also about overcoming a plethora of challenges that come with it. Now let's talk about our current capabilities. In terms of nuclear technology, we certainly have the means to create powerful bombs. We've seen them used in war, and we've harnessed their power for energy. However, transporting these bombs to Mars is where things get tricky. Modern rockets, even the most powerful ones, have their limitations when it comes to payload capacity. The largest nuclear bomb ever detonated, the Tsar Bomba, weighed 27 metric tons. That's more than twice the payload capacity of SpaceX's Falcon Heavy, currently the world's most powerful operational rocket. So, we're looking at an enormous challenge in terms of logistics and engineering. We would need to build and launch multiple rockets or develop new technology entirely to transport the necessary nuclear arsenal to Mars. Then there's the issue of resources. Even if we could overcome the technological hurdles, the cost would be astronomical. We're talking about billions, if not trillions of dollars. And that's just the financial aspect, the human resources, the time, the energy. It's a monumental endeavor that would require global cooperation on an unprecedented scale. And let's not forget the timeline. With current technology, getting to Mars takes about 9 months. Preparing and launching the rockets, detonating the bombs, waiting for the dust to settle. We're not talking about a project that can be completed in a few years. This would be a multi-decade, if not a century-long project. While the technology we have today might not be sufficient to nuke Mars, who knows what the future holds? We have seen incredible advancements in technology over the past century, and who's to say what the next 100 years will bring? Only time will tell if nuking Mars to terraform it is a part of our future. So here we are at the crossroads of a fascinating debate, to nuke Mars or not. We've journeyed through the intriguing Martian enigma, understanding its unique characteristics that have kept scientists and space enthusiasts alike on their toes. We've delved into the concept of terraforming, a process that could potentially transform the barren Martian landscape into a habitable abode, something straight out of a science fiction novel. The premise of nuking Mars, a concept that might seem extreme and controversial, has been explored. We've unraveled the idea of using nuclear weapons not as tools of destruction, but as catalysts of creation. The goal? To trigger a greenhouse effect, melt Mars ice caps, and potentially create an atmosphere that could sustain life. A radical idea, yet one that has been seriously considered by some of the brightest minds of our time. We've weighed the pros and cons, examining the potential benefits and the inherent risks. On one hand, the successful terraforming of Mars could open new frontiers for human exploration and habitation. It could be a stepping stone towards becoming an interplanetary species. On the other hand, the ethical and environmental implications are enormous. The potential for unforeseen consequences is high, and the risk of failure could set back our Martian ambitions by decades, if not more. Then there's the feasibility factor. Is it even possible to nuke Mars? The technical challenges are daunting and the costs astronomical. It's a project that would require international cooperation, unprecedented technological advancements, and the willingness to venture into the unknown. Whether we decide to nuke Mars or not, one thing's for sure: the red planet continues to captivate us, and exploring it will undoubtedly push the boundaries of human innovation and imagination.